On American television in recent years, we've seen a lot of what we call blooper shows, funny outtakes where mistakes are made. Anything come to mind from the Doctor Who series, things that we never saw in the series?
Well, we had one famous blooper, which I think in some parts has been shown in America. It was where we had to do a scene with a horse and cart. And the horse and cart was meant to go up the hill. We were on the back of it, and it was meant to stop outside a church lich gate, this sort of covered arch thing. And then we were meant to leap off the cart and run through the gate. Now, the first time we did it, we stopped the horse and cart, and the horse and cart decided then to go and see his friend, the horse's friend that was standing at the side of the road. So it sort of wandered off at a funny angle off the set. So they thought this was no good. So some bright spark, who never owned up to who he was afterwards, decided to put the horse's friend, the other horse, the other side of the church gate. So we did the scene again, the cameras rolled, we rode up the hill, we all leapt off the cart, through the church gate, and then the horse decided to go and see his friend again, who was, but this time he was the other side of this very small church gate. So he just walked through the gate, demolished the entire gate, the entire set. I just heard this colossal noise, and I turned around to see this horse, the cart, the church gate, half the wall coming towards me. So I just hid behind this tombstone. But the thing was, because he demolished the set, that's the take you see on the camera, but they simply cut it off just before the horse demolishes everything.
Saved by the magic of editing once again.
Exactly.
Why do you suppose the Doctor Who series is so enduring? It's been around since, I believe, 1963.
I think it's several elements. Obviously, one basic one is that it helps to get 6 different actors to play the same part, because you couldn't get, well, it would be unlikely you can get one actor to play the part for 23 years. That being said, however, it has endless possibilities. It's not as a soap opera might be, tied to a certain set of characters in a certain location. You know, one week you can be in the future, the next year in the past. And within that as well, you have different sorts of stories that you can deal with, action stories or more sort of intellectual stories. So I think it just has tremendous scope. And a certain something which is indefinable, which if people knew what the secret was, I guess television will be full of series that had run for 23 years. But it was planned to run for 6 episodes. And it just had a germ of, I don't know, genius about it. It just took off.
Having been the 5th of the Doctors, do you have any favorite predecessors? Which of the previous Doctors before you do you like the best?
I suppose Patrick Troughton would be my favorite, because he sort of coincided with the time I watched the most. And I also thought that he combined the seriousness of it and the humor of it the best, combined the two.
Your portrayal has, of course, been compared to Troughton's. Was this intentional on your part?
Well, if it has, I suppose it was, in a way, yes. I mean, I didn't set out to imitate him exactly, but I certainly, as he was, how I saw the Doctor in a way, I suppose that he was a good basis.
Why did the sonic screwdriver and other props why were they phased out during your tenure as the Doctor?
Well, to be accurate, I think the sonic screwdriver was about the only thing that was phased out while I was there. The K9 was phased out previous to my joining the series. In both instances, the reason was the same. It was felt that it was too easy an implement to getting the Doctor out of a tight situation. In theory, K9 could do just about anything. You know, if K9 wanted to solve the Doctor's problems 3 minutes after the start of the story, he could do it. So consequently, they would have to either lock him away or make him break down. With the sonic screwdriver, if anyone locked me up, in theory, I could just get the sonic screwdriver out, you know, undo the lock, walk away, which it seemed to be too easy. So they wanted to have the Doctor rely on his wits much more. So out went K9 first of all, then out went the sonic screwdriver.
In your 3 years as the Doctor, you were involved in a number of episodes. Is there any one that stands out as your particular favorite?
Well, for some time, Earthshock was my favorite, which I still think was a very good story. And then I think finally, Caves of Androzani, which was the last story I did, was my favorite. It seemed to get everything just about right for me. Anyway.
So it must have been very gratifying to end the series for you on an upbeat.
Oh, it definitely was, yes. It was very nice.
What to you are the elements that make up a good Doctor Who story?
Well, I see it as primarily an adventure story. So if we can get that right, if we can get the action right, and not too many holes in the plot. I remember when I first started out on Doctor Who, I made the big mistake of examining each story too closely. And if you do that, then they fall apart before your eyes. So you have to, although you have to smooth over too many big lumps, you have to then say, okay, even though maybe this bit doesn't logically make sense, then they won't notice it, so you just do it. So it's a combination of humour, adventure, and just a good logic to the story. I like a good logic to the story.
Are you able to walk down the street without being recognized in Britain?
No, I think probably I'm not able to walk down the street. Whether people actually immediately identify me with being the actor from television, or whether they think that that I'm a friend of theirs, that's what sometimes happens.
Does that bother you at all, the lack of anonymity?
It gets to you after a while. Sometimes you feel, you get up in the morning and you feel able to cope with it fine. You can go out and it's actually very nice. If you go along with it, you smile at people, people smile at you, and they're very nice to you. On the other hand, there are days when you fall out of bed and you have to go shopping in the supermarket, and then to have people whispering behind your back, it's that bloke from the telly, it can be a bit, it gets to you, and you just feel like looking. I mean, I spend a lot of time in Britain looking at the pavement. Just looking down like that, walking around.
Are there any differences between fans in the United States and fans in Great Britain in terms of how they react to you?
Well, fans of Doctor Who fans, for example, Doctor Who in Britain covers a wider and more general audience, so you don't get quite that hardcore devoted fans, gathered together in Britain. But I would say they're more forthcoming over here. They're kind of louder, brighter. They're more outgoing, I think, certainly. People in Britain, generally, if they recognize you in the street, rather than go up to you and say, I really like that series you're doing, they will go, psst, it's that bloke from the telly. And they won't actually come up to you. They'll treat you as if you're on a different planet quite a lot of the time. And what's nice over here is that people do come up and talk to you. That's nice.
Which of your British shows have been seen in America?
Well, proportionally quite a lot, really. First thing I ever did, actually, which was a small part in a thing called The Tomorrow People, keeps haunting me because I was wearing a blonde curly wig, dressed as a space cowboy. That's been seen over here. Love for Lydia, which was the first big thing that I did, was seen over here. All Creatures. Obviously, Doctor Who. Something that I did when I left Doctor Who, Anna of the Five Towns, has been seen over here as well, on cable anyway, which is very nice to get that over. That was very different.
Which acting projects are you currently involved in?
Well, I'm doing a series, or I've just finished it. It's airing in Britain at the moment, a series called A Very Peculiar Practice, in which I play a doctor.
It always comes down to being a doctor.
Yeah, I can't seem to get away from it. It's a series set in a university medical practice, and it's a comedy drama, I suppose, in much the same way that All Creatures was, but yet it's very much a series of the 80s.
Before we wrap this up, I'd really like to know why you chose to leave the role of the Doctor after 3 seasons, when it was going so well.
Well, it was difficult. I had to decide whether I wanted to do a 4th year before I started the 3rd year. Now, when I first started out in the part, I decided to do 3 years. I set myself 3 years to do. And when it came up, I had to decide whether to go back on that or whether to stick to it. And on reflection, I was much happier with the 3rd season than I was with the 2nd season. So I was making the decision based on the 2nd season. And I was still fairly young. There were things I wanted to do. And in the end, I just decided that I must, for the sake of my future, just keep to what I decided, 3 years. It seemed to have gone very quickly. But once you say yes to another year, you say yes to another year after that, then another year after that. And it was a great part to do, but you do have to consider in this business, what you're going to do when you finally leave. I know it sounds kind of callous to say that, and I don't mean it in a callous way, because I did enjoy doing Doctor Who immensely, but you know, you just have to think, you know, if you do Doctor Who for 10 years, what are you going to do afterwards?
Is there any chance that you will someday be resurrected as the Doctor, either on television or perhaps in film? Will we ever see you in that role again?
Well, I'm sure I feel certain that you will, certainly in maybe a Sixth Doctor special. Although such a thing hasn't been planned yet, I'm sure it will come about. I have a great notion that I should be cast as the Doctor again when I'm about 65. I think that would be just right. Then I could just do it until I dropped, you see. That would be a good sort of annuity. I'd rather like that.
Peter Davison, thank you so much for spending this time with us in our studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Peter Davison, the Fifth Doctor. You know, it's not easy being a Time Lord, having to do battle with the Cybermen and all sorts of nasty creatures. That's why I like Channel 54. After a hard day of traveling through time and space, it's so nice to relax in the TARDIS and watch my favorite Channel 54 programs without commercial interruptions. But even a Time Lord can't keep Channel 54 on the air. That's why I'm counting on all of you Doctor Who fans to become a member. You'll not only be supporting Doctor Who, you'll be supporting the finest collection of programs anywhere in the galaxy. So take it from me, Peter Davison. Become a member of Channel 54 and tell them who sent you.